right. Hello, guys. It's Bart Johnson here, and once again, it is Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, meaning it's time for us to go live, hang out, and learn some new cool stuff. So today, obviously, as you've probably gleaned if you've found this show, we're going to be taking a look a little bit into 360 video. 360 video is something that I'm just sort of starting to experiment with. There's still a lot that I have to learn, but I've been finding some different methods to use the footage and different ways and platforms to edit the footage, including ways to use it in Adobe Premiere. So we're going to talk about all of that today. I titled the video editing in Adobe Premiere, which we are going to do, but I was thinking about it and I was like, maybe I should have just said different ways to edit and use 360 footage, because I'm going to show you some stuff on the iPad with an app, and I'm going to show you in Adobe Premiere. So before we dive into everything full on, I want to, of course, let you guys know today is a live show, and the beauty of live is that you guys get to hang out, comment, ask questions, and engage with me as we go along here. And I have the ability to pull our chat up here on the screen so you can see the chat right here. So if you are in here hanging out live, feel free to drop a comment in there or a question as we go along, and I will try and answer them as best as we can. If I am getting sort of in the heat of things and you need to ask me a question and make sure you get my attention, I have a little note down here at the bottom. Just tag me with that at Bart Johnson Productions, and it'll pop up in like reddish orange on my screen, and I know that you're trying to get my attention, because I have it pulled up on my other screen over here, so I'll be keeping tabs on that along the way. Anyway, let's see what we've got here. So like I said, today we're going to be taking a look at editing 360 video. And 360 video, like I said, is something that I'm just getting into. At first, it kind of seemed like a gimmick, like, oh, you can put it on Facebook or YouTube and someone can hold their phone up and look around, or wear a VR headset and that. But it was like, are you really going to use that in your workflow? But I've been finding other ways to use 360 video. And one way to do it is to actually create, I guess you'd call them two-dimensional videos, our standard framed videos, and you can actually compose your shots, stabilize your shots, add tracking for subjects and all sorts of stuff after the fact, because you've captured absolutely everything in 360 degrees. So I've made two videos that are already on YouTube. One is a little bit older one where I went to Iceland and I put out a 360 video that is the traditional what you think of 360, where it's something where if you watch it on YouTube on your phone, you can move around and you can explore and kind of see these Icelandic waterfalls along with me and my wife as we're going through. So that's one way to use 360, and I am going to show you that. But then I also released another video, a test video from when I was down in Key West, of me on a boat. And this is the one where I used it more in the standard 2D framed video sense. There's links to both of those down in the description below if you want to go ahead and check those out and see the different ways. But the boat one I thought was really cool because I was able to do camera moves and all sorts of stuff. Even though it was shot in 360, you're still viewing it in our standard 16:9, and that was pretty cool. So I'm going to show you how to do that as well. I see we do have new legend pictures. My buddy Aaron in the house. Good to see you, Aaron. I'm not sure if you started messing with 360 video, but I'm telling you, it's actually pretty darn cool. So the 360 video I've been shooting, this is kind of going to be exclusive right now to the brand that I'm using. So I'm using Insta360. So this is their latest camera, which is the Insta360 One X. They had a previous model, which is called the Insta360 One, and that's what I shot the Iceland video on. But this is their latest one, the Insta360 One X. And it's a pretty cool little camera. So like most 360 cameras, you know, it's got a lens on one side and a lens on the other in order to capture and stitch together this sort of spherical 3D, or not 3D, but 360 image of the world. This one shoots in 5.7K resolution. I am still working on my review video of this. I've just had so much going on and I want to make sure I do justice to this. But I want to show you guys today how I'm editing clips from this, both on the iPad and on the desktop and in Premiere Pro. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So if you're interested in picking up the Insta360 cameras, I do have affiliate links down below if you want to go pick them up. I think it's about like 400 bucks or something. So it's a really low cost to entry if you think about it. I mean, what, a GoPro costs that much, and a GoPro only shoots in one direction. This shoots in all directions. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, so obviously I'm capturing footage on this little camera here. Now it does have a built-in SD card that you can take and offload your files to something like the computer, but the other benefit is that you can control this from your phone, and then you can actually download clips and images to your phone or to something like an iPad if you want a little bit more screen real estate, which is what I've been doing. And it has these various USB connections that you just connect it to the device and you use their app to transfer the files over, and then you can start editing them there. And that's where I want us to start today. So we're going to start actually on the iPad, taking a look at how Insta360 and their app allows you to work with these files. So let's go ahead. Let's see if this will work here. Fingers crossed. So here we go, guys. You should be able to see my iPad screen here. So this is the latest 11-inch iPad Pro. So it has plenty of horsepower. It's basically like a laptop, really. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into my photo and video, and we're going to open up this Insta360 One X app. So these are free apps, of course, when you buy the cameras. Or even if you don't buy the camera, you can of course get the app. I'm not sure if it'll handle other types of 360 footage, but who knows. But this is not only for controlling your device, but it's also for editing and handling the footage afterwards. Again, this is on iPhone and iPad. And if you get the older model, the Insta360 One, there is an Insta360 One app as well that does the same thing. It just doesn't have as many of the features because this camera has a few other tricks and stuff. But let's go ahead, let's pop that open. There we go. Actually, it went in pretty good. So it's got tons of stuff. You know, you can see examples of other people's things on here. It has almost like a little wannabe social media thread on here. But what I use the most is I go to Album, and here you can, if you're connected to your camera, you can see what's on the camera. Obviously, I don't have a camera connected right now, so we're just going to stay local because these are files that I have already downloaded to this iPad. So I have a bunch of clips here from down in Key West, and we're going to use these as kind of our examples today. So this is how they sort of display the clips. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff. Here's the stuff from that boat that I was on. So we're not going to go through those because we've already seen those. We're going to go through when we were exploring, my wife and I were exploring Hemingway House down in Key West. Hemingway's house, which has a famous garden that is full of, I think it's like 60 cats that live on the property, and the majority of the cats are polydactyls, so they have like 6 fingers and toes. Really weird stuff, but that's one of the things, is there are these cats there. So anyway, enough about that. Let's open up a clip. Let's see what looks like a pretty good one. Let's try this one here. So here we go. We've got the clip open, and as you can see, I can scrub around just for viewing, and you can see I've captured this entire world in 360 degrees. There I am playing with, you know, I'm getting it triggered from my phone there. And yeah, so obviously I don't want to view it in this format. I want to get to something that's more like traditional video, because what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe and animate and work this so that I can export this as a regular 16:9 video. So down here in the corner, there's a little thing. Right now it's 9:16. Tap it, we get 1:1 if you want to do stuff for like Instagram, Square. And here we go. Here's 16:9. So now it's allowing me to view it in 16:9, and there we go. And So if I go ahead, I can scrub around in real time and just explore and check stuff out. But obviously this is video. So one of the cool things is I can go ahead and press play. And here we are walking through this garden. And now none of my movements right now are being recorded or anything. I'm just kind of exploring, but you can see sort of the potential for all of this. See one of the little kitty cat houses there. But anyway, so I'm scrubbing through this. So this app has a lot of tools in order to keyframe, track stuff, and do camera movements, as well as what it's doing is it's automatically stabilizing the footage. So if it was shaky, it's stabilizing it and all of that. So if I scrub through, let's do a quick little edit here. Let's say we want to start, and I want to start tracking myself. All I have to do is press and hold on myself. See, it's targeted me there. And I hit Smart Track, and now it starts playing forward, and it's automatically tracking me and keeping me in the very center of the video. So we're going along. Let's say I want to stop our track right there. Now if I go back through the playback here, it's got it in the timeline. It has tracked me, and that's pretty sweet. So let's go a little bit. So you don't have to do it with just people either. Let's see here. Let's say I want to track, maybe I can track this sign. Okay, so it's on that. So let's do Smart Track there. So it's going to track that sign until it kind of loses it. Oh, and it lost it there. But if we do this playback now, watch what happens. It's going to be tracking me. So we'll get to the point. It'll flip around. Okay, it's locked on. It's tracking me. I'm walking through. We're coming to the end. If you see on the timeline down here, the end of that first track, and then it's going to move over. It did a little jerky jump. You can smooth those out, but it moved over to that. So that's the tracking. You can also just do it with general points. And so let's see, from here forward, let's say we want to start looking forward. So I'll just tap right in the middle, and I'll put what's called a pivot point. So that means my camera is going to be looking that way. And as I move along, let's say when we get here, I want my camera to, let's have it look up, like at this palm tree, at a pivot point. Now see, we have these keyframe pivot points on here. Oh, and the app crashed, of course. Not sure if it even saved that, but you know, things happen. But that's the general idea. You get the pivot points and you get all sorts of stuff like that. So album, usually it doesn't crash. I'm not sure what's going on with that. But it's a live show, so that's what happens. So let's see if it saved all of our stuff in this. So 1, 2, so it's got my track, yep, it's got my pivot points. So we go here. So yeah, we told it to look forward, and then it's slowly gonna shift between those 2 points, just like a keyframe in Premiere or anything else, and look up at that, and then it sticks there and say, now I wanna add another pivot point. I wanna look, let's let these people come up. I want it to pivot to them. So now it's going to gradually move between these 2 points. So it was on that. Now it's going to gradually shift and go to that second pivot point. Boom, and hit the pivot point. There you go. So there's a lot of different things you can do in the Insta360 app. Obviously, you know, it takes some time to go in and add your pivot points and change your framing and stuff like that. But it's pretty cool. So yeah, you can add just like points wherever you want. They also have this mode, I can't do it right now, but it's called, if you saw, viewfinder mode. And what viewfinder mode, maybe I can try it. I can't do it very well because I'm tethered, but if I go into viewfinder mode and I hit this record button and hold it, wherever I move my iPad and look, that is where, I reached the end of the clip, that is where it will go. So it basically makes you a live real-time director of what the framing is. So you can play a clip and you can just stand there with your device, your phone or whatever, and go around and move and animate and like, okay, now let's look over to this person, and all those movements of the framing are recorded so that then you can you know, it's all saved in there. You've done your camera moves after the fact because you captured everything in 360 ahead of time. So that's pretty cool. So I'll just say check, yeah, it's done. So obviously I haven't done a very good job of editing this clip. This wouldn't be something that would be very useful. But what you can then do, assuming that I liked what I did here and all of that, is you can go to export, and you can either send this stuff out to the Insta360 community. Like I said, that's sort of like their social media thing. Facebook, direct to YouTube, Google Street View if you want to contribute to Street View stuff. You can send it in Messenger, you can post it to Twitter, you can create a link that someone can then link directly to and go and check it out, or you can do what I usually do, which is to album. So if you click to album, what it's going to do is it's going to export. So you choose whether you want it to be a 360 where you see absolutely everything, leaving it as a 360 video that you can edit later, or what they call fixed frame. So fixed frame is obviously all the keyframing and animation that I just did. And so this, see, it's got all my moves in there. So I'll choose fixed frame. I just click this here and it'll start exporting. And what it'll do is it'll export that to my album on my iPad. And then file management on the iPad is still something I'm getting used to, but what I usually do is I then take those and I upload them from the iPad directly to my Dropbox so that then I can access and edit those on my desktop. Because what comes out of this then is just an MP4 file. So yep, it's done. What comes out of this is an MP4 file that's 16 by 9, just standard video, no crazy stuff, but it's all animated, has the motion, has the movement in there, and then you can take that into your video editor of choice and you can use that to as just regular clips and go ahead and edit away. And that's actually how I put together that that boat 360 video. So I went through, I keyframed everything and plotted everything out in the app. And then I exported each of those clips and then put them in my Dropbox. And so then I was able to, I actually edited them on the iPad as well. So that was kind of a unique experiment. But if I wanted to edit it in Premiere, then I have all these just traditional fixed frame, as they call it, video clips. And I can edit those together just like I'm editing any other video. And so that was pretty cool. So I really do suggest you go check out that, that boat video that I have a link to in the description down below. Let's see here. New Legend Pictures is saying that feature kind of reminds me of the Mimic for the Movi. Yeah, the viewfinder mode where you can hold your iPad or your phone. Like I said, I'm doing an iPad, but then actually animate and move around. So yeah. It's a 360 camera, so you don't have to point it. You just go through whatever the action is. So say you had like a big action scene or something happening, and you just have your 360 camera, someone walking with it, go straight through the scene. Then after the fact, you can compose your shots and do your movements all in post in the app, which is pretty freaking cool. I think that's an amazing way to make use of 360 technology. And like I said, I've only dipped my toes into it with that boat thing. So let me see, actually, I can show you guys some of the boat clips, because it does save my keyframes and stuff in here. So where's one? Is it this one? So I think I used like viewfinder mode on this. And so I can change it, you know, this is like a tiny planet, so you can still make it look kind of funky like that. That's not the one I wanted. Let's see here. Is it this guy? Yeah, I think this one I keyframed. So it's keyframed and it's floating around, and I have it tracking me, I believe, so it keeps its focus on me. Where's another boat one? Is this the one? I think I did a viewfinder one here. So this one goes and animates into a tiny planet mode. So all this was done in the app to do these, which is pretty cool. This one coming out of the boat, I believe I tracked myself again. Yeah, so I had it track me. Look at me there holding a beer on a boat. I'm not driving the boat, so it's okay, right? It's fine. But yeah, so I used it on the boat to set up all these different shots the way that I like them. So this one has like pivot points. So I had it start there and then start tilting up, reveal the whole rest of the boat, So that was using those pivot point keyframes. But anyway, then I took all of these and exported them as just those fixed frame 16:9 clips in MP4 format, I believe is what it outputs. And I was able to edit together the video just like editing anything else. So really cool stuff. So Trevor's in here. Good to see you, Trevor. He says, does it have an option for rectilinear rendering if you don't want the fisheye effect? It should have enough information to do it given how wide the shots are. Yes, it does. So that's actually what I was using. So let me show you that real quick in this app. So let's take one of our cat clips again. Is this one we were looking at? That is the one we were looking at. Let's go to a different one. Let's go to this guy. So let me get back to my 16:9 just because that's the way I like to view it. But yeah, so right now I have it set as being just, there we go. So right now I have it set as being just, like you said, sort of rectilinear. So it does have a little bit of curvature to it, but it's not super fisheye. They actually do have like a fisheye view mode. So they have all these different things. I'm not going to get into everything that this app can do because that's kind of crazy. How do I do that? So this is what they call perspective. So this takes out absolutely everything, all of the bowing and everything, but really, really crops into it. And then they do have modes to do like fisheye and all sorts of stuff. I gotta remember how to do it in here. But there's ways to edit, to trim, to do all sorts of crazy stuff with this. I just can't remember exactly where it is hidden in the menus. But you can switch to a true fisheye mode. You can switch to that tiny planet mode, or you can do this rectilinear sort of corrected 16:9. So it does have a little bit of bowing and curving around the edges, but there are ways to, so I can zoom out. I can zoom in. So there's a lot of different things you can do. But yeah, it's a really cool app. It's a lot of fun to play with. The controls, like I said, and you can see here, are not necessarily the most intuitive thing in the world. You do have to do a little bit of digging to find the stuff that you want for the most part. But for the basic, simple stuff, it's really, really good and really powerful. Especially running on an iPad Pro, I'm able to export things pretty quick. Trevor says, I'm sure you could probably also pull it out in After Effects. Yeah, you could certainly do a distortion correction in After Effects or even in Premiere if you really wanted all your lines straight. You can then correct that. I find that this does a pretty good job for the most part. It's funny because most of the trees in this clip are actually pretty bowed, so I don't have many straight lines. But it's really cool, and the tech is only getting better and better. So we just talked about how we can use this to make fixed frame 16:9 type videos. So using the Insta360 app, obviously this is exclusive to Insta360. I haven't used any other brands, but you can use their app on here to do all of that animating, all of that keyframing, and export this either as a full 360 video or as just your sort of directed video there. So that's using the app. Now, I also said that there are other ways to utilize this and that you can edit on a computer. Obviously, you can export from here, send it to something like Dropbox or Google Drive, pull those clips onto your computer, and you can edit. But what if you want to edit strictly just the full 360 files? Well, let's take a look at that. So as I said, there's an SD card inside the camera. So of course you can plug that into anything, any computer, and offload your clips just like you would from a GoPro or any other camera. And so what we have in here is I've pulled these clips off. I know the file names are a little bit tiny for you there, guys, but I have them in a folder that I call unedited, and I'll get to why in just a second. But these are the clips. They have their own proprietary file extension, so it's .insv, so Insta Video. And here are a bunch of the clips. Now, you're not able to preview these within Mac Finder, obviously, because it's not a native format. But there are ways to manipulate and use these files. And so Insta360, of course, has a desktop app as well. So let's take a look at that. I've got it right here, the Insta360 Studio for the One X. And this one is currently in beta because it is a fairly newer camera. But here we go. I've already pulled a few of our .insv Insta Video files in here, and you can see what this actually looks like here. So let me make this interface a little larger for you guys. So we've got a basic, just a basic timeline down here. It's not really meant for, non-linear editing or anything like that, but it is for trimming down and shortening your clips and all that kind of stuff. So here we are, and I think in this particular clip we follow this this cat. This shot was shot in 50 frames per second, so Insta360 is actually playing it back as if it's slow motion. They've got some bugs and some quirks because I don't really have frame rate playback control here. It just knows that if you were shooting at 50, you probably wanted it slowed down. But so I've got our clip here, and you can see this is what it's capturing. This is what comes out of 360 if we view it in like 16:9 format. It's this sort of distorted, stretched vision of the world. Now up here is where you can see the different ways to look at it. So we have equirectilinear, which is what we are on right now. We have perspective, which brings us in and allows us to navigate around, and this is sort of, a direct view from the camera. We have the full world in 360. Where's that kitty? Where's the kitty? There he is. Let me scrub us forward a little bit. It's not the most fluid software in the world, but here we go. We're playing along, we're following this cat. And so right now this is just for viewing purposes. This isn't recording or doing anything to the actual file footage, but this is one way for you to view it, which they call perspective. Then there's, of course, fisheye, which is a slightly distorted kind of view of the world, that little fisheye effect. So things towards the edges get a little bit bulbous and stretched like a fisheye. And then we have crystal ball, which makes it look like the whole world is mapped onto a little three-dimensional ball that you can then move around. And then the last one is asteroid, which is like tiny planet mode as you would think of it. So here we go. We can move all around, do all this stuff. But again, we're just viewing it this way. We're not actually exporting anything this way. Oops, what did I do? I messed it up. But anyway, I want to go back to equirectilinear. That's hard to say. Because this is what I want to give to Adobe Premiere in my case. I want to give it this and allow it to manipulate and stretch the footage and wrap it into that sort of 360 environment. Now, what you can't do in the desktop app, you can't do all of that keyframing and tracking and all that kind of stuff that you could do in the app. So if you want to do that animating and reframing, right now it has to be done in the app. Those features are not in the desktop version. The desktop version is really just for processing your footage to sort of hand it to something else, if you will. But one of the things that it does do is it adds their flow state stabilization, and it does some stitching cleanup for you. So I know you're like, but this isn't stitched. But what it'll do is it'll sort of mess with the edges a little bit so that when they are wrapped around to make that 360 image, they blend a little bit better. So flow state is what they call their stabilization, and it works really well. So it sort of detects your horizon and puts the horizon in the middle so that you're not staring off into space and stuff. And so if I turn flow state off, we can see what the camera actually captured, and this is like disorienting as all heck. Of course you could edit this, but you're gonna eventually have to, in Premiere or something, tell it where the horizon is and sort that stuff out. So I find this useful to say, okay, yeah, use flow state. Look at that, look how great that is. It stabilizes it, it finds your horizon, it makes it something that's sort of intelligible, at least to look at. And then the stitching. So you can do normal, waterproof case, whether you're in the diving housing underwater or the diving housing above water. So it has algorithms to help stitch all that stuff together to eliminate the effects that those different cases and stuff have on it. So there's not a ton of features in here besides trimming, stabilizing, and stitching cleanup. But this is still the beta, so maybe they'll have more features and all that kind of stuff come later in the future. But for right now, basically I just use this to process these files to make them a little bit easier on Premiere to handle, if that makes any sense. So let me see. I've got a couple questions coming in before we dive into our actual Premiere part. So Trevor's saying Tiny Planet could be a cool effect for a music video. Yeah, for sure, man. Playing with that Tiny Planet mode is so cool, especially in video, and when you can transition from like regular out to like Tiny Planet, like I did in the boat video. I mean, that kind of effect is really cool. New Legend Pictures, Aaron saying that's basically an environment map for 3D modeling software. The equirectilinear. Gosh, I'm probably not even saying it correctly, but I can't even properly say it incorrectly. But yeah, you're right. It is like a 360. It is basically like a texture map or an environment map for 3D modeling, because that's what you're doing. You're going to turn this into a 360-degree environment. You're basically going to map this. If you think about it, you're going to be mapping it to a sphere, but you're going to be mapping it to kind of the inside of a sphere, with your camera being in the very middle of that sphere. And so this is sort of like the wallpaper that's going to go on the inside of that sphere, so no matter where you look, you see it. So it looks a little funky in its general state to us. You know, we're not used to seeing and interpreting stuff like this. But when we throw it into the software knows exactly what to do with it. All right, so I think we made it through the chat there. There we go. So back to the main screen here. So, okay, so I've got flow state on. I've told it I had no case on it, so we're just going normal. So then what I can do from here is I can export the clip. So I would go here, and it gives me some general export settings. This is the resolution of this. It's 3840 by 1920 because I shot this in 4K. Yeah, so this is 4K, 50 frames per second. I wouldn't mess or tweak with that unless you really know what you're doing. It's just putting it out at the same resolution that it was recorded at. You've got bitrate options. So the original was 85.66 megabits per second. You can bump it up to 150 if you wanted to, but I mean, I don't know how much quality you're really going to gain because it was only recorded at, you know, almost 86. So bumping up to 150, you're not going to make information appear out of nowhere. But, you know, you could try it if you wanted to. And then where you want to put it, and then it gives you the expected size, because this is going to output it as an MP4. So it's going to take that Insta360 video file, .insv, and it's going to convert it to an MP4, which is a little bit easier to work with. But the other great thing is it's exporting it to an MP4 that has that flow state stabilization already done, and the stitching kind of cleanup around the edges done to it. So that's really helpful, because otherwise you would have to do that in Premiere using some other plugins or process. So I'm not going to go ahead and do this right now because I actually have, Martha Stewarted this, and I already have a pre-cooked set of files. So let's go ahead and remove this. And that's what I have in my edited here. So these are the 3 clips that we had in there, and these have now been exported to MP4s from Insta360 Studio. So let's open one up here. Ooh, and you can see it's just an MP4 video file playing through 50 frames per second. So this playback is normal. Get a little jittery because I'm making my computer work really hard. But you can see it's it's that equirectilinear type footage. So we have this map of this world that is sort of distorted and stretched, but we're going to be able to spherize it, if you will, when we bring it into Premiere. So our next step is going to be to bring these into Adobe Premiere, and we're going to take a look at how to work with those in Premiere and stuff you can do to it. Why is my Alexa listening to me? Alexa, go home. Alexa, stop. Sorry if I triggered anybody else's Amazon devices there with that, but at least I told them to stop and not do something else. Okay, so let's open up Premiere Pro here. And here we go. I've actually already brought these clips into Premiere, so you can see them here. I've got my edited clips. They're MP4s, 50 frames per second right here. And I have them in a timeline, and we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you some of the stuff that we can do. One thing I do want to note is Premiere with the Insta360 plugin. So there's a download link down below for the Insta360 plugin. They made one for Premiere. Premiere can actually natively read those .insv files. So you can bring them in and you can use just those. However, I've found that they're pretty taxing on the system, and I was getting a lot of lag. I'm probably going to get some lag in this as well because we're streaming and editing and doing all sorts of stuff. But I found it a lot easier to process them to MP4 first, and then bring them into Premiere. So that's my method right now, but that might change in the future. But yeah, Premiere can, with that plugin installed, natively take the native files from Insta360. Sorry, I needed a quick drink break there. But anyway, so here we go. So what I'm going to show you guys how to do and edit in here is that second type of video. Or I guess it was the first one I mentioned, so the first type of video. Anyway, I'm going to show you how to make a video that you can upload in full 360 to Facebook, YouTube, wherever, so that your viewers are able to be immersed in the environment and can look around and see everything and stuff like that. And Adobe Premiere is able to do that, which is really cool. So here we go. What I did was I took our clips and I popped them into a timeline here. Now the trick is, since these have that weird resolution of 3840 by 1920, what I did was I just right clicked and did new sequence from clip, and that ensures that my sequence is the same frame rate. I'm not going to worry about putting these into slow motion, but more importantly, it makes sure that the sequence is the actual frame size of these clips, because obviously they're not going to fit into a normal 16 by 9 because they're a little bit different, and you would end up with like black bars at the top and the bottom. And if you exported that, you would have black bars on the top and bottom, that when everything is stitched, you'd have like a black hole at the top of your environment and a black hole at the bottom of your environment. So make sure that everything matches. But anyway, so here we go. This is our source clip here. Took them, dragged them just straight into Premiere. So as you can see, we can scrub through it just like anything else. There's a little kitty sleeping. That's a pretty cool spot to check out. But what Premiere has built in now that is awesome, because this, I'm like, how can I edit this? I can't make any sense of what's going on here. What I can do is, if you look right here, it may not be automatically in your list of tools down here, but if you go to button editor and open it up, it shows you all the different buttons that you can put on your little bar here, and one of them is a VR viewing mode, so toggle VR video display. So if I click that, we are now in a VR video viewing mode, and it defaults to a 1x1, which I kind of don't like. So if I right click and I go to VR video, go to settings, it actually does it in degrees. So I found that doing the calculations for 16 by 9, it's about 180 degrees horizontal by about 100 degrees vertical. Should give you that ratio of like 1.777 whatever, which is 16 by 9. And there we go. So now we have a 16 by 9 view. So this isn't changing anything with your footage, but what it is doing is it's giving you an idea of what your audience would be seeing on like a phone screen or a computer screen, or I guess, yeah, in like a YouTube frame, because yeah, they can view it on a computer and scrub around, but more for mobile and VR devices. This is giving you an idea of their sort of field of view. So here's this sleeping kitty. So it has taken this. It has taken this map. Actually, here I can show you. So here it's showing me our VR view, but I have it set. So let's just scrub and see that cute sleeping kitty. But if we switch over to our second monitor, where I have my just main display output, this is what it still is showing me. This is what our footage actually looks like. So you can see it's all stretched out there. You can see me and my wife on the sides. But if we go to what the viewer's perspective would be or could be, is when we go to this and we have just this cat here. So it's the difference between this is your targeted view, and this is what it's actually seeing. Or this is what the actual footage looks like. Okay? I know, it's really hard to wrap your head around all this stuff. Let's see. So Trevor says, it's been so long since I worked in Premiere. The 1x1 is pretty clearly for social media publishing. Yeah, you know, 1x1, I do wish there was a way to set the defaults in this where I could have it default to like, hey, I always want it to be 180 degrees by 100 degrees so that I always have this kind of frame. But it always seems to default back to that 1x1, 108 degrees by 108 degrees. So yeah, it's, you know, I wish, you know, all these things are kind of in their infancy, and I wish that they would do that. But yeah, 1x1 is probably a social media thing for, you know, Square, Instagram. But anyway, so this helps you view and helps you kind of understand what's going on and everything like that. But we're not actually editing or making changes to any of our footage. So with 360 video, when you show it off and put it up there, you don't have a lot of control over what you're showing your audience. That's the problem with 360 video that people say is, all right, well, you never know where people are going to be looking and what's happening. But what you can control is you can control what they see first. So you can control, like if I wanted to start this clip with them looking at the kitty and then maybe they start exploring from there. Or if I want to make sure that they start looking in a certain direction and then they can explore from there, that is what you do have control over. And so there are a few plugins in Premiere that allow you to shift where your sort of center focal point of your image is, and that's the only real control that you kind of have. And that's what I did in that Iceland video, is I started it off pointing the audience in the direction that I wanted them to look. And then, you know, of course they can turn around and explore as the clip plays. And then when it cut to the next clip, I had them start looking at what I wanted them to look at, and then they can wander and explore from there. So that's really the only control you have over your audience, is what they look at first. And check my time, there we go. So in order to do that, what we need to do is come out of this mode. So this mode is a viewing mode to really help us out. But let's go back to our standard. So this is what our footage looks like. And I want them to start out looking at this kitty. Now he's actually pretty close in there, but, oh, did my mouse just disconnect? This has been happening to me a lot lately. Connection lost. Connected. I don't know what's going on with my Bluetooth. But here we go. So if you go into the effects panel here and you just type in VR, you'll see that actually under video effects, Premiere does have some built-in stuff. So it has immersive video, it has VR blur, it has all these different VR plugins, and it also has VR immersive video transitions, which can be helpful if you want to transition from one scene to the next without just a hard cut. So some dissolves and kind of stuff like that, because a lot of the transitions, especially think about if you did like a wipe or something like that, it's not going to work the way it does on flat video. It's going to look wonky. You need it to work in this sort of spherical environment. Now I also have plugged in here GoPro VR. So there are free GoPro VR plugins for Premiere, and you can go and download those. There's a link in the description down below. And so they do some kind of different things that you can do to your video, but they are out there. So one of the things, so GoPro has VR Horizon, so it'll allow you to set your horizon if you didn't have something like the 360 desktop app to do the flow state and level everything. And it also has GoPro VR Reframe. So what this does is if I add this to this clip, look what it does. Did you do anything? There we go. So it reframes it into, you know, it's not quite perfect, but it reframes it into a sort of flat video, if you will. So then you could export flat video, and you can animate where it looks with keyframes and all that kind of stuff. And you could export just a regular fixed frame video from this with that. But it's a lot easier, at least with the Insta360 stuff, to do it from the app. So I'm going to go ahead and take that off. So the GoPro VR reframe is basically a sort of clunky way of doing all the stuff that the Insta360 app did for us in terms of the reframing, focusing, and then exporting it as a fixed frame thing. So I don't touch the GoPro ones very much. I find that the built-in ones in Premiere actually work a lot better for me. But if you don't have Insta360, or you're not shooting with an Insta360 camera and you don't have their desktop thing or their app, the GoPro things for the reframing are definitely an option. But here, so we've got this, it's playing along. We want to make sure this cat is our main focus for this, right? So what we'll do, where is it? So VR rotate sphere. So if we put that onto here, what happens is we can now change. So in here it has tilt, pan, roll. So if I change this, it looks like it's just being kind of wonky and funky, but it's actually tilting what your view would be. So let's get that cat dead center. He was pretty center anyway, but with the pan, let's say we wanted to focus on like my feet first or something like that. So, okay, there's my feet. Awesome shot there. But yeah, we get the cat dead center and the roll if we wanted to tilt it, but you know, I'm going to leave it leveled at 0 degrees. But there we go. So now when we toggle to our view, boom, the cat is our dead center focus. So let's try it on a different clip. Let's go to this clip here. So here's this clip, and we're starting off looking at me, but maybe I don't want us to start off looking at me. Let's scrub a little further along. Maybe I want us to start off looking where I'm walking instead. What I would do is take this VR rotate sphere, because it's treating this as a sphere and we're just seeing it kind of laid out. And I'm going to change my pan. So I'm going to shift it to right there. I want it to look down the path that I'm walking. I don't want it to start looking at me. So when we go to this, boom, our starting view for my audience when I upload this is going to be looking down this path. And then as it plays along, you know, they can of course then scrub around and be like, oh, what's he checking out? Sorry, it's lagging pretty badly. But they can be like, oh, what's he checking out? What's he doing? And then they'll see that I'm back there. But I can change where I point my audience in the first place. So I wanted them here, so I did that pan and everything, and I had a start looking in that direction. So you can do that. Now, another thing that I did that I've just started going into is putting text into the world. So say you wanted to add other elements or text or something like that into the world, like I did in the Iceland video. Again, go check that out down in the description down below. Make sure to view it on a phone or something that's VR capable so you can look around and see what you're looking at. But I put some text in there to kind of direct the audience a little bit more. Or I put it to label the names of some of the waterfalls we were looking at. Again, I was just playing with it. Now let's see how we do something like that. So let's see, let's go. I'm an old school man, so I go to legacy title as opposed to using the new title thing. I'll just say walk this way. And so it'll bring it up. This effect requires GPU acceleration. Yeah, nice. Okay, so I'm gonna just type walk. Is it working? Walk this way. Ooh, that's hard to see on there. But what I'm going to do a drop shadow, and let's scale it up a bit. And I'm just going to create it, and I'm just going to put it right in the middle. All right, so okay, so I have this this object here, and I'm going to put it in our world. Walk this way. Now, look at that. That looks perfectly normal, right? If we go over to the second screen, like, yeah, it's text on screen. This should be perfectly fine, right? Wrong. When we go and we view in 360, everything's going to get stretched, including this, and it's going to end up looking wonky. So here you go. It's all sort of distorted and stuff like that. So it's distorted. You might like that kind of look, but I want this to look natural, like it's floating in this environment here. So the way to do that is they have another plugin effect here called Plane to Sphere. So we take that, drop that on this, and now it's going to map this to our sphere so that when we open this, its distortion is worked out so that it's actually correct. So maybe you want it the other way. Maybe you want it to look, a little stretched and stuff and spherical, like you're in a spherical environment. But if you want it to look like it's placed and it's there on purpose, then yeah, it's pretty cool. And you can do stuff where people walk past it and you can turn and look at it and all that. So there's tons and tons of different plugins in here. I really can't get into all of them because I haven't even explored them all on my own yet. And there's so much stuff just built into Premiere that's specific for VR. Like I said, again, there's these transitions. So let's try and transition from one shot to the other. Let's remove this. Let's take this, put it here. Let's just do the VR gradient wipe between the two of them. Yeah, it will contain repeated frames. But it allows you to do a wipe. Sorry, my system is struggling. It's not going to play back. But it allows you to do a wipe between the two, like a gradient wipe, that's going to render correctly in a 360-degree mapped environment. So there's tons of stuff in here. And then what you do is you go ahead and you export this video from Premiere. So let's say I wanted to do that. Let me pull it up and check our chat while my computer's trying to catch up. So you can export it, and Premiere does have settings. Where is it? VR. So here you go. You have all these different export settings. VR monoscopic is usually what I use. So VR monoscopic, match source, that's just the bit rate and resolution and all that stuff. Ambisonics, which is it's referring to your audio. So if you had like actual 3D or 360 mapped audio as well, so that like the audience could really be immersed like in a VR world, you use that. But I'll just use VR monoscopic match source stereo audio. You export this. Not going to do it right now, but you export that, and what it'll give you is it gives you a file that is basically just like an MP4, and then you take that, upload it to YouTube, upload it to Facebook, whatever you want. It has the metadata in there to tell it, hey, this is a 360 video, and then it takes that video and displays it correctly as a 360 where your viewer can explore the environment with their device. So I know I sort of glossed over that pretty quickly, and there's a lot more that you can dive into, but I just wanted to show you guys that there are capabilities already built into Premiere that allow you to create these immersive environments, or using the GoPro VR plugin to flatten those out and reframe and conduct your scene. Obviously right now the easiest way for me using an Insta360 brand camera is to use their app to do that tracking, that stabilizing, that reframing, and export a fixed frame video file to do traditional style editing. But they also have their desktop app if you want to do just some general stitching fixes and stabilization, and then bring it into a traditional nonlinear editor like Premiere, and then use those plugins to add different elements and edit an immersive 360 video. So I hope that helps you guys. Let's see if we got any other questions in the chat. I am going to wind this down. That was a lot of information, I know, and there's even so much more out there, but I just wanted to show you some paths to creating these two very different end products from a 360 captured source, so that you don't have to do an immersive environment for 360. You can use it in sort of traditional filmmaking ways. Let's see here. Trevor says, Trevor says, it would be interesting if they modified the software so that you could add anchor points in the scenes to control the way viewers move through the footage. Oh, yeah. So you're talking about adding anchor points so that no matter where your viewer is looking, they're kind of tethered to a certain thing so that at a certain point it would force it to snap to. You can do that. It's not as simple as just an anchor point. But what you could do is you could animate. So let me go back to what you could do is use that VR rotate sphere. This is all keyframeable. So you could start it at the beginning, say this is what I want my starting frame to be, add keyframes, and then at a certain other point, you say you want it to slowly move to another point, you just add another keyframe and change your values. Now that might be a little disorienting for your viewers because they're going to be trying to look around, but the video is going to be moving on them as they're moving, and they're like, why am I being pulled in this direction? But you could keyframe and animate that and really sort of try and force their focal point through the whole thing. But I think it would kind of be a little disorienting, and they'd be like, well, I'm moving this way. Why is it trying to keep pulling me back the other way? But you do have the ability to do that and reframe and keyframe and animate and do all that stuff in here. And you were saying they could set up the interface so it would be the same as keyframes. So yeah, I just told a way to do it literally with keyframes. And then Trevor says, adding 3D text actually mapped to the location of objects would be insane if you could have people walk through it or by it. Yeah, so right now, I'm adding text elements and stuff to a digital environment or where everything is mapped to be flat. So you're never going to really pass directly through it necessarily. But I bet you if you took this MP4, put it into After Effects, added that text element, made it a 3D, made it animate forward sort of as you're walking, or tethered it to an object, and I bet you they have the same VR plugins in there. So if you did an anchor point on an object like a tree or something, I bet you could have that text come by and it would stick to that tree even in 360. I haven't tried that yet, but the potential is there to be able to, stick null objects onto stuff on this 360 map, because it is just a flat video map, like Aaron said. So you have this whole map, and there's no reason you can't add null points for it to track and have objects move along with it. Not sure exactly how it would work out, and it might be a little wonky, but the potential is definitely there for that. All right, so let's get back here. So I think that's about all I've got, guys, for us today. I didn't know if I was going to be able to fit it in our usual hour-ish time frame, but it looks like we're just at about 1:57 Eastern time, so that is absolutely perfect. I am going to be experimenting more with 360 video. I'm going to try and use this camera to do a lot of different things, and see different uses and stuff for it, and different uses for 360 video and different ways to edit it. And I'm sure the capabilities of our editing software, the capabilities of the apps are going to keep improving and getting better and better. Like I said, the Insta360 desktop app is still just a beta, so who knows what's going to come out and what it will be capable of. But if you have any cool ideas for ways to use this 360 camera and what to sort of make out of that, how to manipulate it and what to do, please leave them in the comments below, because I'm always looking for cool stuff to use. And right now, this technology is really, really, really interesting to me. So if you guys were here for the live shows, I know we've had a few of you guys hanging out. Thank you very, very much. I always appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out, and makes these shows worth doing. I absolutely love it. If you are catching the replay, I hope this was educational for you. I hope it gave you some ideas about how to use 360 video, and make sure you go ahead and subscribe so that you get notifications when we are going live, so you can be part of the crew that hangs out and chats live with us as we hang out. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. I am not going to have a show next week because I'm going to be in Indianapolis. So I will be busy filming, so I won't be able to have a show next Saturday. Actually, let me take a peek at my calendar and figure out when the next one will be. I'm coming back on the 2nd. So it looks like the 9th. Yep, it looks like February 9th is when I'll be back. So no show next week, but the following week I should have a show. So make sure you stay tuned. Make sure you have that notification bell turned on so that as soon as I post the subject for that show, you get that notification and you know that it's coming up, and you can come on in and hang out on February 9th. So guys, I'm going to get on out of here. You take care of yourselves, and I will see you in 2 weeks. All right, guys, I will see you later.